Welcome back to the Atlantic Council's IMF-World Bank Week programming here from Washington, D.C. I'm Mrugank Bhusari, and I'm Assistant Director with the GeoEconomics Center at the Atlantic Council. I am here joined by the Honorable Advisor for Finance, Commerce, and Science and Technology to the interim government of Bangladesh, Dr. Salehuddin Ahmed. Dr. Salehuddin Ahmed assumed this role in August of this year, but this is not the first time he's representing Bangladesh at the annual meetings of the IMF-World Bank. He was also the central bank governor for Bangladesh from 2005 to 2009. So on all issues of finance and economics in Bangladesh, there are few people who can speak with greater authority than Dr. Ahmed. Advisor, thank you for joining us. I know you have a very busy schedule.
Thank you.
So let's dive right into the Bangladesh's economy. The IMF's VO came out yesterday, and it is projecting 5.4% growth for Bangladesh in 2024. This is really impressive, but it is a small downgrade from the 5.7 that it was forecasting in April. What is your assessment of IMF's revision?
First of all, it's not a very big
Small,
downgrade.
small downgrade.
downgrade.
Yeah.
And the reason for that, we are undergoing some kind of we say kind of slow of the economic activity, especially the private sector growth, because you see started around the first quarter of this year, then the movement picked up, people's movement, then about July, August is almost uh, closed. So now we are picking up. So uh, rationally, this should be the 5.4 is a good one. I think there's a logical and I think there's a rational calculation on them.
Yeah, and there are a series of shocks that have affected the global economy at large, but even Bangladesh's economy since 2020. There was the pandemic, there was Russia's war in Ukraine, there is Middle East tensions, and geopolitical risk especially is something that has remained persistent even right now. There is a potential for further escalation in the Middle East. Is geopolitical risk and a potential escalation in the Middle East something that you're concerned about the ripple effects for Bangladesh?
Yes, we cannot be unconcerned because you see, we're a part of the international financial system. And secondly, we have to be integrated. We are integrated with the international financial system, and we have to import a lot of things like fuel and the food items. So some of the things are imported. So you see, the including the LNG and so if the escalation happens there, some of the countries are supplier of our energy and other goods. So this is one effect. And secondly, transportation and all that thing will be there.
Yeah.
And thirdly, as we now in a state of affairs that we are in a financial crisis to some extent. So if the prices go up, then we have to pay more. That is about it. So together, there will be definitely pressure. So we are watching it. We're taking some contingency plan about if some imported items, special essential item, including food and fuel. That are priorities. So we are, and including fertilizer for our agriculture. So we are taking some measures. We hope we will be able to do it, but we need some international cooperation from other countries, other donors. That's what we are here. I'm here to talk with them.
No, of course. And speaking of importing essential goods like fuel and fertilizers, we've already seen this happen once when Russia invaded Ukraine. There was a huge spike in oil prices all around the world, including for developing economies. It became especially hard because it is harder to import those things at those prices. Inflation has become an issue for Bangladesh as well since 2022, since early 2020s. At 9.7, it's a little bit higher than the target for Bangladesh. How are you approaching addressing inflation within the economy?
Now, you see, inflation is one of the very major challenge for us. And controlling inflation is not an easy task, it's a daunting task. Now, inflation occurs because of different factors. Firstly, there are some factors on the demand side. If there is a flow of demand, effective demand through circulation of money, and in fact, with the previous government, the low rate of interest policy, they were very easy money for the big investors. And some of them really diverted their money not to the productive purpose, to other. That's what we are facing problems. Secondly, a huge chunk of money printed by the central bank to meet the demand of the government, and they spend it there. They even expend it onto some project. That's also created some kind of a demand, cash demand. That created inflationary pressure. On the other hand, the supply side, you know, that if the goods and services, if it should come to the market, and there's a break in the supply chain also. Recently, the break was very severe. Before that, there are also severe break of the supply chain from production to marketing to the consumers. So that also has broken down. So we are trying to repair in the both sides. Monetary policy has been a little bit tight in order to control money supply. On the other hand, we are trying to increase agriculture production, food, and other things. So both we are doing, but it's not an easy job. Recently, inflation has gone down by one percentage point, 1%, and then we are hoping that in a couple of months we'll bring out at a reasonable. Let's see 5 or 6. We cannot make it at a completely 2 or 3% level, but we hopefully do that, and we are aware of that because the suffering it is eroding the purchasing power of the fixed income group people, and is also and some of the import we do that is also costing more money than before. So it's a major challenge for us.
Yeah, and you mentioned interest rates, and you've been the governor of the Bangladesh Bank, so you've been on the other side of this complex operation. So now that you're a finance advisor, how do you think of coordinating fiscal instruments with monetary policy to make sure that the supply side of these issues are well addressed?
Oh, that's a good question. You see, integration or symbiosis between the fiscal and monetary policy is essential. Now, fiscal policy usually becomes a little bit expansionary because, you know, in a country like Bangladesh, we need more money for our expenditure, revenue side, and we also need money for our development projects. So money supply usually, there's a tendency for our expenditure to be higher than our income. So that is the reason we have a budget deficit. We meet the budget deficit. It is not very high now. It is about 4.2%. But we meet the surplus deficit through our domestic savings, but that is not enough. We have to borrow from abroad. So what we are doing right now, we are trying to reduce the budget expenditure in other unnecessary items, and we are pruning the annual development project. There were some projects taken during the last government which were rather not very useful for us, and implementation of those projects are very slow right now, so we are looking at it so that we can reduce the expenditure. And on the monetary side, from the Minister of Finance, we have given a very free hand to the governor of the Bangladesh. So he is raising the policy rate right now, and interest rate has also been raising. The business people are making hue and cry that why interest is so high. But there's nothing called cheap money. So it will be there. And secondly, we are encouraging monetary policy authority, central bank, to provide some credit, especially concessional credit to small and medium enterprises. That is very important. You see, those people do not get money easily from the banks, but the banks have their orientation, they like the big borrowers, though many of them are defaulters. So that is one thing, we tried. And another aim, if you encourage small and medium enterprises, goods and services will come very quickly. Gestation gap and the big projects have got a long gap, and some of the products do not really come to the market, which is supply for the consumption and other. This is one. Second, we are also encouraging, we're telling the Monetary Policy Authority that please give some attention to the employment generation. That is one of the many, because many of our young people, educated, they are unemployed. So we are, because labor intensive and employment intensive are small industries, because if you invest $10 million, they'll invest about 1,000 people. But if you invest $100 million in a big project, they cannot. So this is one of the aim. And in the fiscal policy, as I already told, that we're trying to prune the annual development expenditure, and we are also trying to reduce some of the unnecessary expenditure on the part of the government. So both sides, fiscal policy with the austere measure, austerity, and a monetary policy, there should be kind of a control. And also not simply control, but also ensuring smooth credit to the business people. That has to be. Otherwise, if the business doesn't expand, that there will be economic growth, economic performance will not be very satisfactory.
And we've covered, growth, inflation, two issues that the government is already focusing on a lot. But I also want to point out that 2026 is going to be a major milestone for the Bangladeshi economy. It will graduate out of the UN's least developed country status. And this is a tremendous achievement for Bangladesh, especially over it really is a note of the progress it has made in the last 10, 20, 30 years. If there are, do you have any key lessons that you would like to share with other countries that are also in a similar stage of development, that are also seeking to graduate from that status?
What we have done over the decades, over the several decades, successive governments, in fact, they tried it not only with one particular government.
Yeah.
And so what we have done, we have given emphasis to the growth and also uh, uh, the construction of infrastructure and some business-friendly, though it's not a perfect one. We know that's our business. People are complaining and to some extent. But and one of the most important factor for our development is agricultural sector.
Yeah.
They have been consistently contributing to our food production and agriculture in a wider sense, agriculture, livestock, fisheries, and horticulture, vegetables. Yeah. So if their production is really almost normal all the time, so this is contributing to our growth, and this is one. Then we are continuing, and then our export sector has really expanded from very low level. We have gone very, RMG, ready-made garments, one of the very
impressive
rise. And at the same time, we are trying to diversify the export and our leather, plastic products, electronic goods, they are also increasing. And another thing, a huge amount of people, they have gone abroad for work in Middle East and even the Western country. And there's a huge amount of, there's quite a substantial amount of remittances that comes. And it also builds up our current account balance. So altogether, economic activities, especially in the private sector, facilitated by the government infrastructure, government policies are facilitated. So that's how, over the years, there were ups and downs, of course.
Yeah.
There are some problems. There are some problems, as I already told. So consistently, the development is that, despite a huge population, 170 million people, it's a huge country.
It's a huge country,
And geographically, we are limited, but our economy is one of the it is 32nd economy in the world. So it's not a small country as far as economy is
concerned. It's a shining star.
So that's what we say, that is an example to other countries also to follow. But I must say the caveats are there, the problems are there. We could go a little bit further and about the United Nations goal is, which is from the low income, LDCs, this development is the developing countries, a great achievement. And that was assessed in terms of our growth and our vulnerability reduction and also human resources, but we have to check. On the other hand, the World Bank thing, we are going from the lower middle income to upper income. So that is another achievement. I think we have done reasonably well, but we see the one weakness of our development is that our macroeconomic growth, the indicators which we have mentioned are good, but the fruits of development, they have not gone to the people at the proportional level, because rich has become richer and the wealth and income inequality has increased a little bit. So we are now giving this attention to the
There's still a lot
growth.
of work to do.
About the social development, education, equal growth and all.
And you mentioned the ready-made garment industry earlier. I know you also said that it's risen from a very low level to a really large level. And about 85% of Bangladesh's exports are ready-made garments.
That's true.
And you also already said that you're trying to diversify the economy. How are you approaching that? What kinds of industries are you trying to expand into? Where does Bangladesh have some comparative advantage?
Okay, you see, unofficially there were 700, 800 products we export, but those are, some of them not very significant, handicrafts and other things, small ones. But our comparative advantage, our ceramics one of the top in the world. Then some of the plastic products are very good and very cheap also. Third, some of the electronic goods are very good one. Then recently, in fact, leather is one of the very prospective, though the export base is low. But one good thing about for the labor industry, input is domestic, because we slaughter all kinds of animals, cow and goat. So the input doesn't have to be imported like the garment, cotton and yarn. So this is one prospective thing. They are doing it, but we are encouraging them. Basically, finished product of leather goods, bags, and they are well demanded. This is what. Then we have the jute now. Jute previously used to be only Hessian jute bags. Now jute products as jute carpet backing, jute bags, and jute some of the professional products. In fact, the other day, one of the ambassadors visited me, and he didn't know that jute has got so many types of products. He said, now my country is interested. So these are some of the things we are trying to divert. At the same time, we are trying to encourage some of the small products like the handicrafts, very things which are made by the SMEs. And for this, we need financial support to them, and also our help from the government, from the business community also to link with the market, because these people cannot directly go to the international market.
Yeah.
The big ones can go, but the linkage with the market is very much, like the RMG has already made the linkage with the market, the buyers and the
sellers.
so that's what we are trying to diversify the export.
And it sounds like a lot of this will have to go, a lot of the economy will have to be reformed, will have to go through structural reforms, state institutions will have to adjust to adapt to Bangladesh's changing economy. And I want to the interim government has announced a spate of reforms of state institutions across many sectors. From the finance and the commerce perspective, what are your targets under this reform program?
No, you have used a very important word, structural reform. In fact, we have to go, and that structural reform has to be sustainable. This one-off reform, structural reform will not do. After, if possible, we leave, then the same structure will come in. So first thing, our institutions, banks, insurance companies, markets, and other promoting, export promotion, or these institutions, energy regulatory, these institutions have to be made efficient with the proper people. And previously, there was a lack of transparency and accountability. Not suitable people were not praised. It's basically political consideration. So this is number one. Second is the banking sector is in a difficult. Some of the bankers are defaulters. Some of the banks are not well governed. Some of the banks' money has been taken away by the so-called owners. So that is a major aim of the central bank. So what we are doing, we are trying to reform it. Even we are changing the management, bringing more people, those who have shareholder, and we are trying to divest some of the things. So this is one of the bank sector. And banks' performance, accountability, and default loan have to be improved. So this is the bank sector. Unless the banks are well, good, then we can. And we are also investing on the capital market, which is not very developed one. There are some problems, the insider trading, manipulator. So we are trying to develop, because equity participation, foreign portfolio investment is very important. And we are trying to encourage the FDI, foreign direct. For that, we have to make the business climate more friendly. And business climate means regulatory reform, institutional reform, provision of services, energy and other things, provision of land. So a lot of things have to be done. And on the other revenue side, this is very important, because our tax, income tax, VAT, this is also very important. And we are trying to rationalize our customs duty and facilitation of the ports and airports to get cleared the goods and services, so they were. So these are some of the reforms which are
ambitious,
essential.
very ambitious.
Very ambitious, and that is what the private sector wants. Because they want a simplified thing, very efficient system, which we are trying to.
I want to talk about the private sector more, but before that, given how ambitious these plans are, what kind of timeline are you thinking for these reforms?
It's a good question. Now we see we have divided the reforms into two periods. Three. First is the short-term reforms. Short means not 1 or 2 days, to few months. So these are the reforms we have to do. The bank, NBR, and we have been talking with the World Bank and IMF. They have given certain kind of prescriptions, and we have already, in fact, they have told that our achievement performance is good to the short-term reforms. Then there are mid-term. Mid-term is the audit system, then even the energy sector, alternative energy, because we are dependent on fossil fuel. So these are the things that takes time. And generating alternative energy, green technology, green energy is not very easy. Even it's very expensive.
Everyone is finding it hard. Bangladesh is not alone there.
Because the cost, at the end, the cost of the energy is low, but when you develop, you have to invest money. So that is one, it will take some midterm, something like that. Now that we have a kind of a long-term vision also. Long-term vision, when the institution have to be good governed and sustainable. Banks have to be there. There will be inclusive development. There is a kind of a long. So short-term, we are already embarking on, and mid-term, that definitely will go. And that, our development projects, which are the infrastructure, health, education, and then environment. Environment is one of the major focus for us. So we are trying to develop the project, and we have been talking with the donors. They'll give fund. So that will take a kind of midterm. That will not be finished by 1 or 2 years. It will fall. Then in the longer run, 5 to 10 years, there will be long run, like reducing inequality, reducing the poverty level, and also having more infrastructure in terms
Yeah.
of roads and highways, in terms of IT, etc. So it takes a long time because infrastructure, you can have some kind of snapshots of improving some of the here and there, but long-term infrastructure, it needs investment and also both hardware and also software
Yeah.
there. So that's how we will, and we'll be possibly initiate the short term, a little bit of mid term maybe,
Yeah.
but what we'll do, we'll leave some footprint. We'll leave some prototype thing. So the next political government takes it up. And we'll try to convince the people
Yeah.
that these are for good of the people, irrespective of the government, so that they cannot abandon it. The tendency of the political parties,
Yeah.
if somebody introduces something, the next political party comes and that just sweeps everything under the carpet. So we'll try to
To make it
avoid that
sustainable,
cycle.
yeah. And so you've spoken, luckily Bangladesh, the government is not alone in trying to push these reforms along. There's international partners, there's the private sector, as you've mentioned. Could you tell us a bit more about what role you see the private sector playing in this reform process, or how do they fit in this
You
picture?
know, what the private sector needs, finance, they need regulatory support. The regulation will be simple. There will be no unnecessary blocks.
Yeah.
So that they will facilitate. Now there are so many types of regulations, so many paperwork, so many questions asked. So this is one. Thirdly, you see, a lot of money has been siphoned off. People have taken away money, so we are trying to recover them. So we want to give a message: there should be no corruption, there should be level playing field, and that's how we have to have a governance. So these are and climate is one of the most important things because we are very vulnerable. We a marginal land in the south of Bay of Bengal,
Yeah.
and near where people live there, and saline water comes intrusion, they cannot produce, they cannot have agricultural production because of salinity. Then, of course, they are flood and all the, you see recently there's a big flood, and about 6 or 7 days are completely inundated. All the farms were also. So these are some of the things which we think
Yeah.
will be attract the private sector, and most important is that the donors. Donors mean we are donor in the sense not the grant, we are taking loan.
Yeah.
Some of the so World Bank is convinced that what we are doing is okay, so they'll most of the things they will give to the some of the specific projects, and some of the things they'll also give it to the private sector.
Can you tell us? Sorry.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit more about what kind of assistance the World Bank and the IMF have been offering so far, and is it matching what your needs are at the moment?
Uh, uh, in fact, what we are doing now, we are giving the demand needs. It's not now they do it, but they are willing. For example, we need some kind of budget support, that is balance of payment support, and in order to support our export import things. So
Yeah.
this is one, and another part they call it support the they call it a environment resilience fund. Environment means that climate
Yeah.
control adaptation, so that agriculture, other things are facilitated. And and there are third thing that the specific projects like World Bank is interested to facilitate a Bay Terminal. One is another is a big some highways and other things. So this is one. Like today, this morning, I talked with the OPEC fund. They've already given a fund to some of the private sector,
Yeah.
specific bank, some of the industries, small food industry, others. So this is private, and the government they are giving some specific fund for government. So this is OPEC. IFC, same. IFC basically is a private. So
Yeah.
they are oriented to the private. So MEGA is there, that MEGA guarantee. Yes, so they are for the private through the bank,
Yeah.
and IMF will give you budget support, and also as well as IMF basically the budget
Yeah.
support. As IMF doesn't go directly to the private sector, and Islamic Development Bank, they are giving some support.
So a lot of partners.
Yes, of course, they are giving support to the Islamic trade financing,
Yeah.
which finance our LNG import, fuel import.
What kinds of conditions are being discussed as part of these packages?
Most conditions, first is the banking sector, you have to reform it, it
Yeah.
should be efficient and all that. Second is the revenue sector, which has to be, that is the tax and structure. Third is the institutional thing that the private sector incentive scheme. So they do not advocate. We also don't have unnecessary incentive given, and there is a cost on our revenue part. So we will give assistance to that extent. So that is one another part. So all the people are really agreeing with that
Yeah.
kind of thing. And some of the assistance we need now to get the banking sector reform. We need some technical assistance. For that will be not just spending on the project, on the technical assistance. There are people and consultancy, and some of the like climate also. In order to formulate a good projects, we need and stolen asset recovery, the money laundering. We need some kind of technology because it's a financial crime is a very sophisticated.
Yeah.
When they take it out, we need to. That's what World Bank is doing
Yeah.
in case of Nigeria. You know,
Yeah.
there's a huge amount of money. In the case of Philippines, Marcos. So we talked today with different, even the UK minister. I had a talk. They are also willing that we can give some kind of technology. So it is a various kinds of things, but basically it is for sustainable development so that it is for inclusive development. We bring all the people.
Yeah.
Third is a kind of a climate resilient thing so that it will
Yeah.
be basically green technology, green banking, green activity. So these are some of the focus areas which is beneficial for the country and for the people in the long run.
And advisor, we only have a few minutes left, so we've discussed at length about Bangladesh's domestic economy, but I also want to get your thoughts on Bangladesh's position in the global economy. So all the finance ministers are here in Washington, D.C., but some of the prime ministers and presidents are in Russia right now for the BRICS summit. Bangladesh's foreign advisor is representing Bangladesh at the summit as well. In the past, the government has applied to join BRICS. Is that something that you think is still valuable? Are you still
I
pursuing
think
it?
it's still valuable because BRICS is a big economy in
Yeah.
Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. So we are interested in BRICS because we want to have, for our trade is one of the vehicles for our export import. We want to expand our markets basically because we see garment industry is only confined in a few markets, UK, USA. So we want a better market. In fact, some of the pharmaceutical products also go to Africa.
Yeah.
So that is one potential. Pharmaceutical is one of the very potential. Our pharmaceutical products are one of the best quality. So that's how we need the BRICS. And we also need, there are talk about to rejuvenate SARC, South Asian, so it was a little bit dormant. And there's also talk about RECEP, regional economic cooperation in Asia Pacific. So we want the regional.
Yeah.
So our aim is to expand regionally. Then we are at the same time in tandem we are going to the global. So that was we expect. We cannot be a kind of a domestic-based economy.
You can't be isolated.
Because it's a big country. It cannot be simply Hong Kong or Singapore type. You can afford to be very small and busy, but we cannot. We must have external relationship, external support, and all. That's what we are aware of.
And I want to ask you one final question, advisor. Since you've talked about trade with regional partners, especially BRICS countries, and the two countries that are side by side or really close to Bangladesh is India and China. And in the last few years, Bangladesh has developed frameworks to process payments with India in rupees and with China in renminbi. And we've also seen that in the last year, Bangladesh, some companies paid some Russian companies in renminbi as well. How do you see the role of the dollar, the rupee, and the renminbi in Bangladesh's economy and trade and finance for the next
You see, to be very frank, dollar will be a little bit dominant because it is a reserve currency. Whatever you talk, renminbi is a little bit one, but the dominance of dollar in terms of reserve, in terms of backing, in terms of so because of positive dollar, we are trying to kind of swap from dollar to renminbi and yuan. To Indian rupee. But you see the problem with the Indian rupee, we import more than export. So we don't have that much of Indian money with us. In that case, Indian they will want Indian rupee. Say no, then we'll have to convert our dollar into rupee.
So it's still a dollar problem.
So dollar problem. At the same time, the exchange of these two. Then again, if they're excessive, we have to revert back to dollar. This is one problem. Second is China. Same. Our export is lower than, but China is willing because China has got a lot of projects with us, funding in wise. India has got, but China can tell us that some of the things can be matched with what we give to you. And thirdly, With the other countries, Russia, we are having some problems with Russia. We are importing something. There's a sanction on Russia, but not on food or fertilizer, so we can pay. But for the other payment, like the nuclear plant we have there,
Yeah.
we are having some issues with US said that is a ban on repayment. So we are trying to bypass Russia but it's not an easy task because
It's not easy.
no else country will take the responsibility of sending money to a sanctioned country.
Yeah.
So, but we'll solve it. But we've been talking with Russia and others.
Thank you, Advisor, for joining us today. We know you have a really busy schedule, lots of people to meet, but thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure to talk to you. Thank you.
That is the end of our programming for the day. Join back in tomorrow. We will host ministers from Ireland, Saudi Arabia, Spain, and Ukraine, and many more. Stay tuned.
Great to hear you speak. Love to listen to your voice. It was very interesting, definitely, more so as a Bangladeshi.
Of course. I'm from India myself, so I really care about what happens in Bangladesh and around.